This is Sarah again, coming to you from my Real Food Kitchen. And today I want to show you how to make homemade egg noodles. I'm going to be having some people over soon, and we're going to have beef stroganoff. And that's already a delicious dish, but it is so much better if you make your own homemade egg noodles. I'm going to teach you the recipe that I learned when I was a girl and I took home ec. So it's super simple. I'll quickly flash you the list of ingredients and the method you will learn from watching me. So here's the ingredients. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to need some beaten egg, lightly beaten egg. You saw it was 3 eggs and 1 yolk. Hence the title, egg noodles. So whenever a recipe says lightly beaten, it just means incorporate the yolk into the whites. So that's good enough. So into a bowl, you're going to empty the flour. So that's the 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. We don't need it to rise, so I'm not using bread flour. We need about a teaspoon of salt. I'm putting a little bit more. I like my pasta and my bread a little bit on the salty side. So I put about 1 1/4 personally. I'm gonna just stir that up a little bit. And now we're gonna add the egg and the milk. To the flour. And on the recipe I wrote a 1/3 cup to a 1/2 cup. You know, doughs are one of those things where it all depends on how much flour actually ended up in here, because I didn't sift it. I never sift flour, no matter if the recipe says it, because I hate to sift flour. Consequently, I have to be ready to adjust the liquid in recipes. So for now, I'm going to use my Danish dough hook, a tool that I adore, because the configuration of these wires is just the right amount of agitation for a looser dough. Okay. Just make sure you incorporate all the flour. And then I want to talk to you about this. This surface that I'm going to dump this dough onto is a piece of canvas, which I have at my convenience because I'm an oil painter. It works perfectly for rolling out doughs, bread doughs, this kind of dough, cookie dough. You don't have to have a piece of canvas, although it works great. You can just have a sturdy linen towel. And the nice thing is that you can roll on something like this with a really wet dough, and it's not going to stick. And you can also move it if you need to, rather than do it on your cutting board and then have to deal with that aspect. So first of all, we're going to spread it with some flour. And now I'm just going to empty this onto here. That's good enough. I'm going to flour it a little bit and flour my hands. And then see how I can move it around on this surface so easily? So I'm going to knead it like this for about 5 minutes. Dusting it with flour as needed. And while I do that, I thought I'd tell you a thought that I had about the whole lessons that we used to learn in home ec class or in shop class, both programs of which have mostly been eliminated in the public school system. Something that I think is very distressing, but I got to thinking that all of these things that we used to learn in home ec, like sewing, how to hook a rug, how to make bread, how to cook certain things, or in shop class, how to make a square hole. We can learn all of these things on YouTube now. It's like we have dealt with the lack of wisdom, I think, in eliminating these programs by creating this public forum. And now we can just, it's like our version of home ec and shop class. You can learn how to do anything that you want by your fellow citizens of the world. I love it. I think it's awesome. Isn't that cute? I love it. And like all doughs, needs a spanking. Now, I think that's been roughly 5 minutes, maybe a little less. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this dough, I'm going to cut it into 3, knowing me, uneven pieces. And I'm going to roll these out. About a 1/4 inch thick, maybe a little bit thinner. So in terms of egg noodles, yikes, you can roll them out super thin if you want to, or thicker. It all depends on what you're going to use them for. If I were going to make egg noodles that I intended to put in chicken noodle soup, I would probably roll them out about a 1/4 inch thick. And the reason for that is I want them to have some substance to be able to withstand the fact that they're gonna pretty much float around in that liquid and stay in there. I might try and roll them out a little thinner for my beef stroganoff because they're not going in soup. So I'm kind of coating them with a little extra dough, extra flour. Oops, I'm gonna need some more. There's quite a lot of egg and milk in this, so these bits of extra flour that I'm adding in order to make it workable, not going to hurt it. All right, that's good enough. So now the nice thing about this cloth, if I were going to use this surface for something else right now, I could just pick this up and move it over there and get it out of my way. But I'm just going to leave it here because I'm not doing anything else right now. And so I'm going to let this rest for about 15 minutes. And then I'm going to show you how to cut the noodles in a really cool way. All right, see you in 15 minutes. Hi. So if you remember, we rolled out the dough about 1/4 of an inch thick, or 1/8 of an inch thick, depending on what you're doing. And we let it rest for a while, for about 10-20 minutes or so. We just needed to dry out a little bit so it wasn't quite so sticky. And now you can turn these rectangles into noodles in one of two ways. You can either simply cut them with a sharp knife, like that. Now remember, I'm making these a little bit wider because I'm using them for beef stroganoff. Or for example, if you were going to make a ragu, which beef bolognese is a ragu, for example. Ragu takes a wider noodle like this, which if this were an Italian noodle, it would be a tagliatelle, I believe. So it's nice for ragus, stews, stroganoff, that kind of thing. If you wanted it to be for soup, you might cut them a little bit thinner. But they cut easily now, especially on this well-floured surface. And then you just kind of move them aside. And I mean, you could, if you wanted wide noodles, wide shorter noodles for something like that, which the length of the noodle for my purposes doesn't matter that much. I'm going to continue to do it this way. So easy peasy, just like that. And I kind of like the fact that it's not so exacting because it sort of hammers home the idea that these are homemade. Person made them. Or you can be super fancy and you can take your rectangle, give it a little more dusting of flour, and you can roll it kind of like you would a Victoria sponge or a jelly roll or something. You can roll it like that, and then you can cut it like this. Maybe a little bit faster, but then you just need to unroll them and lay them out. Oops, I broke part. So now in terms of drying, I'm just going to leave them on this canvas surface until I feel like they're ready to just be put away. I'm not going to use them today, so I'm making them in advance. But if you wanted to make homemade noodles and use them in the same day, I would say let them dry for a good, I would recommend 2 hours, depending on how moist your air is, 2, maybe 3 hours, and then you can go ahead and use them right away. To use them, you're just going to boil water like you normally would. I like to put a little salt in it, in the water. But the difference is you don't need to boil them for very long. 5 minutes maybe? 7 tops. Just do the usual thing where you take one out with a slotted spoon and see if it's your desired degree of doneness. I like mine al dente. And that's it. That's how you make homemade egg noodles. Personally, the freshness is kind of the whole point of them, so I wouldn't go more than a couple of days before I use them. And I guess that's it as far as advice on how to make homemade egg noodles. So thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up, and I would love it if you left me a comment. All right, take care till next time. Beef stroganoff.